Sometimes some crimes go slipping through the cracks, but I'm not going to sing that one either. Welcome to my continued unscripted look back at the Disney afternoon. Today, of course, the subject of the video will be the first ever show that was exclusively produced for the Disney afternoon, the first original Disney afternoon show. Just as a quick recap, in the last two videos, we talked about the first shows that Disney Animation Television created specifically to test the waters, to make sure that they could succeed in producing animated shows for syndicated cable television, and through mostly Gummy Bears and DuckTales, not so much with the Woozles, but DuckTales and Gummy Bears, they proved that they could most definitely do that, especially DuckTales, that at this point in the story has become a pop culture phenomenon. It's one of the highest rated animated shows on television, and there's a DuckTales movie on the horizon. So they start to produce shows that are specifically for the Disney afternoon. The Disney afternoon is in full effect. It is coming. It is going to happen. This show marks a lot of firsts for the Disney afternoon. It is also the first animated show that was produced or worked on by the legendary Tad Stones. Tad Stones, one of the major architects of the Disney afternoon. He is most famous for being the creator of Darkwing Duck. Something that I talk about extensively, ad nauseum, in my Darkwing Duck Honest review. You are free to check that out if you like. So also it was it was the show that started the very funny trend where most of the Disney afternoon shows during their production were supposed to be something, and then by the time they made it to television ended up being something completely different. As I illustrated in my Darkwing Duck Honest review, Darkwing Duck was supposed to be a parody of James Bond called 00 Duck. But by the time we got it, it became something completely different. Again, I tell that story at full length in that video. As I said in my Gargoyles video, Gargoyles was supposed to be Gummy Bears, but in modern times. That's not what it ended up being. Tailspin was supposed to be something completely different, which I will talk about in the next video in this series. So what was Rescue Rangers supposed to be originally before it became Rescue Rangers? It was supposed to be an animated series about Disney's The Rescuers. Remember that movie? It's okay if you don't. It was pretty forgettable. It's not a bad animated Disney movie. It's just, generally speaking, it's not considered to be one of their best. And when people talk about their top 10 favorite animated Disney films, Rescuers is rarely on that list. It is a charming movie, starring two great actors, Bob Newhart and Eva Gabor. So I can understand why anybody would look at that film and see potential and see why that could potentially make a great ongoing animated series. So I'm going to borrow a line from my Legends of Fandom videos during this portion of the video and ask, why didn't that happen? The answer is very simple. I can answer that question with one name: Jeffrey Katzenberg. For those of you who don't know, Jeffrey Katzenberg is one of the stereotypical Hollywood producers. There's just as many good stories about the man as there are bad stories, but he is largely responsible for this silver age of Disney animation during this time. A lot of amazing animated shows and movies are produced under his watch. And then you notice in the late 90s, things start to wane the moment that he left Disney and to form DreamWorks Animation with Steven Spielberg and David Geffen. And of course, DreamWorks would go on to defeat Disney at the box office in 2001 when they released Shrek. So if you're one of those conspiracy theorists that's always looking for like the common denominator, the common factor in something in your theories. In the case of animation during this era, through the late 80s, through the 90s and the early 2000s, Jeffrey Katzenberg. So back up to when Rescue Rangers was being produced, excuse me, the Rescuers cartoon was being produced. During this time, Katzenberg is making this aggressive move to make Disney the animated feature king. Again, they have lost that title. Their animated feature department is no longer what it used to be. The year that The Black Cauldron was released, remember that amazing Disney animated film, The Black Cauldron? No, it's okay, most people don't. The year that that movie was released, it bombed. And you know what was the #1 animated movie that year? The Care Bears movie. I'm not going to get too deep into it, but the Care Bears movie, no bueno. Not very good. It definitely doesn't hold up, and I don't think it held up back when it first came out. Anyway, point is, so Jeffrey Katzenberg wants to retake that throne, retake that crown. He makes an aggressive move to retake that title in the movie world. And under his leadership, Little Mermaid and Who Framed Roger Rabbit are produced, and those movies immediately start to put Disney back on the map as far as having the most successful animated films. So he's in the middle of making, of moving along that campaign to get Disney back where it should be in the world of animation. And Tad Stones is producing this Rescuers animated series. Katzenberg hears of it and immediately puts the kibosh on those plans, because the very next movie, animated film that Disney Animation was coming out with was The Rescuers Down Under. Sidebar, Rescuers Down Under is amazing. While the first Rescuers movie is just okay, Rescuers Down Under is one of the most incredible animated films ever produced by Disney. In my opinion, it was the first good animated Disney sequel, and for many years it was the only good Disney animated sequel. If you haven't seen it, after you finish this video, go to freaking Disney Plus right the F now and watch it. It is amazing. I can't recommend it enough. Sadly, that movie bombed at the box office, but you know, it is what it is. Point is, Katzenberg didn't want the Rescuers animated series to create any kind of conflict or confusion in the marketplace with the Rescuers movie that they were so, you know, feverishly working on at the time. So he told Tad Stones and his team, is like, no, it cannot be a Rescuers animated series. Rework it, turn it into something else. So this is also one of the first instances where we get to see Tad Stone's ability to turn lemons into lemonade. Something that he would later run into when he would be producing Double O Duck, and he would find out that, oh no, Ian Fleming's estate owns the trademark on the Double O name. You cannot make TV shows, movies, or products called Double O blank. They own that. We have to turn this into something else, and he turned Double O Duck into Darkwing Duck. Just like that situation, before that situation, he runs into a similar scenario where they've been working on this Rescuer show, and suddenly they are told that, oh no, it cannot be a Rescuer show. And I'm sure there's an alternate reality out there where the amazing Tad Stones produced this Rescuer show starring Bob Newhart and Eva Gavor, and it's an amazing hit, and it was excellent, and it elevated the franchise to a whole other level, and Rescuers is considered to be one of the greatest franchises under the Disney banner, but we don't live in that reality. So what Tad Stones did is that he already had an idea for an animated series about a team of small animals that would go on rescues and adventures and stuff like that. So he took that idea, put it on the table. It's like, what if it's this, and we call it Rescue Rangers? And the Katzenberg and the rest of the powers that be, you know, the head of Disney Television Animation, all those people were like, okay, we love it, but we feel that with DuckTales, we found the perfect formula to make these shows work. We're telling new stories, but with the classic Disney characters. So after a lot of debating back and forth as to what classic Disney characters they could add to Rescue Rangers, they settled upon Chip and Dale, the classic Disney animated short characters that would mostly share the screen with Donald Duck back then. Chip and Dale, famously named after the iconic furniture manufacturer Thomas Chippendale, whose name was also the inspiration for the tick villain Chairface Chippendale. Put that rare factoid in your cap, why don't you? Anyway, so they plugged in Chip and Dale into Tad Stone's Rescue Rangers idea. And of course, they wanted to modernize them a little bit, so they gave Chip and Dale clothes. For the first time in their animated existence, they wear clothes. But they don't wear just any clothes. They specifically have them dress like two of the biggest action icons of the era, Indiana Jones and Magnum P.I. Like I said in my DuckTales video, in the 80s, Indiana Jones was the biggest movie franchise. Nothing could beat it. It was huge, and its influence is felt all over. It's felt in DuckTales, it's felt in this show, and it will be felt in Tailspin when I talk about it next time. Another first, this show was the first show produced under the 65 and done rule, which states that an animated show cannot go past 65 episodes. So after they've produced 65 episodes, they end the show regardless of how successful the show is. I talked about this in my Kim Possible video, but Kim Possible is an animated show that was specifically produced for the Disney Channel. Rescue Rangers, as I established, was created for syndicated cable television. So why would they apply this rule to Rescue Rangers? Because that would make it more appealing to any cable networks that were interested in buying episodes. That if they did make a commitment, a full commitment to the show, they knew that they would be free of it after 65 episodes. So that's why that was created. Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers was also the first show that after those 65 episodes passed and the show was canceled, a letter writing campaign was initiated by the fans to bring the show back. Now, the letter writing campaign was not as big as what it was for Kim Possible. Keep in mind, Kim Possible was a global hit, but it was there. It showed Disney Animated Television and the Disney company in general that there was a huge audience for the show that cared about these characters and these stories and wanted to see them continued. And it definitely showed them that what they were doing was working. Also, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers was the highest rated animated show of the 1989 and 1990 season. Keep in mind that this was in the genesis at the beginning of the pop culture phenomenon that was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And even then, even with Ninja Turtles outselling every other toy line in the toy business and getting steady ratings through their cartoon animated series, Rescue Rangers still defeated it for a full season. Why? Very simple. Based on basically Disney Television Animation's concept of putting their shows on a very specific block 5 days a week worked. Every child on the freaking planet knew when Rescue Rangers was coming on. Ninja Turtles was on 2 different networks. It aired at from Monday through Friday in the afternoon and on Saturday mornings on a completely different channel. But most kids didn't really know when it came on. They would just be flipping channels and see Power Rangers, and see Ninja Turtles, and oh, Ninja Turtles is on, and watch it. With the Disney Afternoon, they created branding that let kids know exactly when the show was coming on from Monday through Friday. I remember this clearly, that I knew exactly when the Disney Afternoon was going to start. I would sit down, and at the top of the block, they would show you clips of what episodes you were going to see on the 4 shows that made up the block. And then at the end of the block, while the credits were rolling, they would show you clips of the 4 episodes you were going to see the next day or on Monday. So it was really easy to keep up with when the shows were coming on and what episodes were coming on. In fact, Rescue Rangers was the first animated show that as a kid in my entire life, I kept up with from start to finish. I watched every episode when it was first aired as they aired, from start to finish. And how did I keep up with that in 1989? Because my mom taught me how to read the TV guide. No internet back then, no way of looking it up. My family heavily encouraged education and literacy. So anytime that I showed any interest in any kind of reading, they would push for it, especially my 2 grandmothers and my mother. I got into comics and superheroes because my paternal grandmother, noticed that I was watching a lot of superhero shows. I was watching the Adam West Batman. I was watching the 60s Spider-Man cartoon. It's like, oh, you like those characters. They're from comics. And she started getting me comics. And then when we would go to the library, there were comics at the library. And while she was doing research for my grandfather's office, he was a part-time lawyer, I would sit there and read comics, and that's how I got into that. So when my mom found out that I loved the show and I want to watch every episode, she said, you can, with the TV guide. And she taught me how to keep up with the episodes and when they were coming on and when the new ones were coming on and when a rerun was coming on using the TV guide. That's how I learned to read the TV guide. And I remember I had papers, a whole stack of papers where as a kid, I took notes on which episodes were coming on, what the premise was, the dates that were coming on, the times, all of that crap. I kept up notes, and I clearly remember watching it until I ran out of episodes and getting to that final new episode and then not having more episodes of Rescue Rangers to watch, and just how sad that felt. It was the first time I experienced that feeling, and it was through this show. Anyway, so this show had an amazing cast. Just like all the other Disney afternoon shows, you had Corey Burton as both Dale and Zipper, and you had Tress MacNeille as both Chip and Gadget. 2 people play 4 Rescue Rangers. That's almost all the Rescue Rangers. Originally, Monterey Jack was played by Peter Optimus Prime Collins, but he leaves after between 10 to 13 episodes, the first season, and he is replaced by, once again, just like Gummy Bears, he's replaced by the guy that was brought in to be the utility player. The utility player in a cartoon is the person who does all the peripheral voices, all the characters that have maybe 1 or 2 lines, pizza delivery guy, the security guard at the museum, that character, that actor. Jim Cummings replaces Peter Cullen. So Peter Cullen had already landed 2 roles through his utility performances, Fat Cat and Dr. Nimno. And then Peter Cullen leaves and he just replaces him as Monterey Jack. So he plays 3 major characters in the show. Don't ever ask Corey Burton and Tress MacNeille to do Chip and Dale's voices. They can't do them. Their voices were sped up to sound like Chip and Dale. It's a very crazy process where they would have to record their lines in half speed. So if Dale says, hey, what's the big idea? And he says it really fast and really funny, Corey would have to say it, hey, what's the big idea? And then they would rewind the tape and replay it at double speed, and it would sound like Dale. Hey, what's the big idea? And they would have to do that for every single line. Say it at half speed, rewind it, listen to it, make sure that it sounds right, and if it didn't, they had to do it again. And it was a painstaking process, but Jim Cummings says that after 2, maybe 3 sessions, that Corey and Tress had it down to a science. They knew exactly how to deliver their lines so they would sound right when they would be replayed at double speed. So nothing but respect to them and the greatest voice director of all time, Andrea Romano, who was the voice director through most of those sessions and figured out how to record those voices right. Just love and respect how much artistry and care went into just the recording process of these characters to make them sound right. So does this show still hold up if you rewatch it? I would say yes, but my perspective is dramatically different as a kid and as an adult. When I was a kid, I saw the Rescue Rangers as this amazing unit, as this team of heroes who would achieve everything through teamwork and collaboration. And rewatching it as an adult, I realized that no, Gadget is the one who's doing everything. The other characters are just assisting her. Chip, Dale, Monterey, Zipper, they're just her team. She's the leader. She's the most valuable player. They wouldn't be able to do shit without her. She is the most valuable genius character inventor of any show. More valuable than Donatello, Wade from Kim Possible. They wouldn't be able to do anything without Gadget. So if you rewatch it as an adult, you'll enjoy it more if you make peace with the fact that it's Gadget's show and everybody else, is just supporting characters. There you go. So those are my unscripted thoughts and factoids about Disney's Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. Next time we will finish this unscripted series about the Disney Afternoon by talking about the final of the original 4 shows of the Disney Afternoon block, which is Tailspin. A few announcements before I close this out. I am going to announce what my next honest review is going to be right here for you. Nobody else knows this. My next honest review is going to be on the Clerks animated series, which sadly not enough people talk about. It is considered the Firefly of animated shows. It was canceled way too soon and fans love it to the extreme. So I'm going to be talking about that next month. When, on what day? Keep an eye on my Twitter account where I will eventually announce a date when that video will be released. Right now on my Patreon page, I did an unscripted E-Rant on the Super Mario Brothers movie. So if you want to know my thoughts on that film, but you're not a patron, all you have to do is go to patreon.com/E-Rant and pledge $1. That's it. $1, you get access to all of my bonus videos on my Patreon page, and at the same time, you're helping me continuing to produce content and be the blockbuster buster. You can't beat that with a wooden stick. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for your ongoing support and the ridiculous amount of encouragement and kind words and support that I've gotten for this unscripted video series, even though I know it's not what most of you wanted. You wanted professionally edited, scripted videos talking about the Disney Afternoon shows. But you were so cool and understanding that I like these shows, but I'm just not passionate enough to spend a whole week talking about each one. So thank you. Good Lord, so much support for these videos. Thank you so much. Next time around, we're going to close this out. So again, my gratitude, because the fact of the matter is I could not do what I do without you.